we have two missions. One is to do investigative work that we distribute through a variety of media partners, clients, collaborators, locally and nationally. And the other mission is to do teaching and mentoring, both of professionals and of students. It's kind of our commitment to the future journalists, the next generation of journalists. I teach investigative journalism at San Diego State in trade for our small windowless office space. I'll introduce you. This is Ryan Gabrielson. He works for California Watch, and JW will also introduce himself.
I'm Ryan Gabrielson. I cover public safety for California Watch. For those who don't know who we are we were once a new, small, nonprofit investigative startup. We're now, I think we have 30 to 40 people now in just 2 years. Oh yeah, now I can stand. California Watch is we're actually housed, we're part of the Center for Investigative Reporting, which is a nonprofit, investigative reporting outfit. We got upwards of 40 people covering sort of every range of topics you can imagine through all different mediums and outlets. We partner with almost every newspaper and TV station in California. And through CIR, we partner with the New York Times and PBS Frontline to do all kinds of stuff. But I specifically work for California Watch, which of course focuses on providing deep dive investigative reporting for the state.
Oh yeah. I'm J.W. August. I work at the ABC affiliate here at KGTV. I run our investigative unit. Been doing investigative reporting for about 25 years. And I actually get to work with these two folks, as they'll explain. And these are interesting times if you're in the business or you're getting in the business. And hopefully this morning's discussion will help you. And you've got some real good pros who know how to survive. That's the secret.
Okay, one of the things we wanted to talk a little bit about, I know the title of this panel discussion is Doing Watchdog Journalism on a Tight Budget. Our budget's really tight, but we're also really small. I think all of us can say our budgets are tight. We do, however, at the Watchdog Institute, one of the reasons we were created was to do longer form investigative work in answer to the downsizing of many newsrooms here and across the country. So even though we have a tight budget, we also have less tight deadlines because we do, like I said, longer form stuff. I can certainly speak to how to do watchdog journalism on deadline and on a tighter budget and a tighter turnaround, having been the Metro editor at the Union Tribune for many years. Ryan can talk a little bit about it too in his own personal experience, and JW is living it. One of the things we wanted to talk about is the collaborations now that are going on. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the tumult in the industry that's caused many of us to form these new nonprofit investigative centers. The Watchdog Institute is a very small center. We have 3 reporters, actually 2.5 reporters. Many of the regional nonprofits that are cropping up around the country have contract writers. Some have full-time reporters. But they're all an answer to this void we see happening in the long-form investigative journalism. Some of my colleagues, there's a center in Denver that cropped up a couple of years ago in response to the closing of the Rocky Mountain News. Another one in Seattle in response to the closing of the PI. There's one in Texas. There's one in Boston, based at Boston University. There's one at the University of Wisconsin. Many of us talk together and look for opportunities to collaborate on stories that might have national interest, but then we can each zone in and do stories that we feel are important to the region. One of the collaborations we did with our fellow centers, some of you may have seen, JW and KGTV did it, was on air safety. We analyzed a database of NASA reported incidents that had to do with mid-air near misses. And we produced that story. Wisconsin, Boston, Denver, they all did their own stories, and NPR did kind of an umbrella story. That's kind of one of the new models that we're looking at, is collaboration across a number of centers. So I was going to talk a little bit about one story that we did that both California Watch and the Watchdog Institute have collaborated with KGTV. Some of the technical difficulty we're having is I wanted to explain the story we've done, and Ryan explained the one that California Watch did, and then JW was going to show you how they basically made it a television story and what our working relationship was like. I don't think we're going to be able to have the audio, so I'll just kind of tell you.
Well, maybe, don't give up,
Yeah.
because we can pick it off the internet. We can pick the stories off our
But
website.
it's still the audio that's
Point
the
the audio, it's not.
Oh, it is audio.
The audio. We can get we can put the video up on the screen here, it just won't have anybody talking, which you could, unfortunate, but we're still working
We can
on
read
it.
lips and narrate for you
That's
guys.
right. But
I looked at the tape so much, I know it by heart.
I'll tell you a little bit about the story one of the stories that we did. We've done a number with KGTV, and the one that we did that's not maybe viewed as a typical television story. We have a reporter in Washington, D.C., actually the only reporter in San Diego County who actually is full-time feet on the street in Washington. And her whole mission is to monitor the congressional delegation from, what the 5 congresspeople are doing for you or not for you in Washington. And one of the things we followed up on was, some of you may remember a story the Huffington Post broke about a congressional sponsored cigar club that Brian Bilbray had sponsored. And it turned out that many lobbyists were part of this group. That was kind of questionable about whether they should have been part of it. These groups are formed so that congressional staffers can get together and talk about things and get to know each other and whatever they do. But lobbyists were involved. So we took basically that story one step further, and we looked at legislation that Brian Bilbray had introduced since the Cigar Club had come into being. And we looked at the lobbyists that were part of the Cigar Club and looked to see whether there were connections to their clients, companies they represented, pharmaceutical companies or others, who might stand to gain from legislation Brian Bilbray was introducing. So that story was, like I said, deep research, rather complicated, but the KGTV team was able to make that into an interesting television story. And then Ryan can tell you a little bit about the recent one that California Watch did.
Yeah, last month we launched, we're only 2 years old, so this, we call it the Seismic Package In-House. The project official title, I think, was on, excuse me, On Shaky Ground. It was a 19-month investigation. Oh, stand up?
No audio.
It was a 19-month, very traditional, old-school, big newspaper type investigation. It started out with one reporter, Corey Johnson, our K-12 reporter, was assigned by the editors to find out the Loma Prieta, I'm mispronouncing that.
Right.
Earthquake, the 10th or 20th anniversary was coming up. We had just launched. He was supposed to, within a month, turn around a quick turn story, are California schools ready for the big one? 19 months later, we published. But what he found was that 20,000 schools lack final certification under something called the Field Act that's supposed to set standards that every school building is supposed to meet to ensure that it won't fall down when the big one hits. 20,000 schools, we don't know. And there are several thousand within that had level 4 deficiencies, which suggests that we have a pretty good idea that they probably won't perform very well. Getting those records, I think Corey eventually, and I was one of 3 reporters out of like 40 people at our operation that wasn't involved in the story, so if I have to go general some of it, I apologize, but it was just a massive sweeping effort, but even more massive in the reporting, which involved reviewing of over 30,000 pages of records and basically taking over the office of the state architect by California Watch people. And when people would call in for asking for information about the Field Act and stuff, the agency itself started referring people to our reporters. But even more complicated was the collaboration and the distribution, which was just unlike anything I've seen before, where we actually worked with a number of newspapers distributing shorter versions of the story, because the original story was like 5,000 words, and working with them not only on editing, and then with TV stations, we launched our own sort of in-house video team to work with TV stations like you guys to take what is a very complicated bureaucracy, a story about a massive bureaucratic failure, and make it good TV. And I think we succeeded, and you can probably talk about how that happened, because I don't actually understand how we succeeded. But because I'm a caveman. I mean, I dig it through records, I interview people, I type on keyboards and write stories and stuff. But in terms of actually taking that, those long print stories and turning them into meaningful, television reports is something that we're all having to get much better at and having to do a lot more of. Casino Watchdog Institute and California Watch, as we continue here, we'll talk about, we don't want anybody to feel that they should be sort of abdicating duties, investigative reporting work or abandoning it in favor of us, our institutes. But we're one way to leverage. If, a lot of it will start out with, we're working on stories and we contact you. But it really should be going the other way as well, where if you guys have story ideas and it's something big, and you can't get the time, or you don't quite see how your newsroom can do it on its own, we're people to talk to, because we have resources that can help. And sometimes we can team reporters with you, or just give advice, or put you in touch with the right lawyer. We're here to actually, not just for our own reporting, but to sort of lift all ships. So that's it over to Jim.
Yep. Hi. I hope we're getting closer. And he's so right. You don't give up your reporting in order to work with these folks. They do far more complicated, data-rich stories that we don't have the people to do, nor the time. Our unit is small now. It used to be quite big, but now we're down to one reporter and a part-time producer and a shooter. So I hear audio.
That was this
It's a
computer,
miracle. Oh. So, and our relationship with both of these are different. With the Watch, with this group, we are signed up with other ABC affiliates all across California. And they have an agreement with all the stations. With San Diego State Watchdog, it's a one-on-one. In addition to that collaboration, we collaborate with the San Diego Union Tribune. We work with their investigative unit, and then sometimes we've done a three-way hit where the paper will do it, and the Watchdog does it, and then we do it. So we're always looking for ways to get more important product out there for the public to see. I think it's pretty well known now. As many platforms you can put your story out on, the better off you are, because there's so many platforms out there. There's so many voices yelling. How do you get heard? Well, one way is multiple platforms. And I think that was kind of the first thing that everybody began to realize. You have to have multiple platforms, and how do you do it? Traditionally, we never worked with a newspaper. The cultures clashed. But
competitors.
right, we're competitors. I'd love nothing better than beating the UT on a story for years. And but that's all changed. And the important thing is the story. And so to get the story out, we've developed these collaborations. Just to tell you that in the case of Watchdog in San Diego State, they'll send the script over. We'll see their script, rough draft first, then a final draft, and we'll be able to talk to their data person and the reporter. And we go through the script, and it's my job to make it in TV language with my reporter, and we I don't want to use dumb it down, but